Hello and welcome back. Thanks for joining again. In the last video you'd seen how we'd got the engine going, we'd split the tractor in half, ready for the engine to be installed. But there's one thing we need to do before we can do that, and that is make the adapter plate. You're going to see how we created that out of a bit of plywood, then converted it into steel, then had the issues of the clutch to sort out to work out how we would make a Land Rover fit the shaft of a Fergie. So we're going to have a little discussion about that. So let's see how we get on. We've got the adapter plate off the back of the 300 TDI. We're going to now make a template of that on a bit of plywood, which you can see here. I've measured the centre point of this opening because it's the same distance from either side, which has given me somewhere to start with. So I've used a rule, I've got that in. But then I've used these dividers. I've got a cross on the board, so I've got a centre of the board. And with this set of dividers, I've gone from the centre point and I've marked out where I've got it all the same in the circle of this piece here, which I checked on the engine was central to the actual centre of the flywheel. So now that allows me to get all the holes for the starter motor and where it'll bolt to the 300 TDI with these holes in here. So we're going to mark them up, we'll get them drilled out, then we're going to actually fit it to the 300 TDI, then we can mirror that to match the Fergie back end. So now we've got marked out the piece what will go to the 300 TDI. We've got a central point as well, which we can now focus that to the back end of the Fergie. So you're probably wondering why I'm putting red oxide around the bell housing. So the idea behind that is I'm going to put a bit of plywood on here, which I've got centralised with a screw, which is going to go in the end of the shaft, which we've measured as centre, with a bit of copper packing. And hopefully we're going to get a template of where these holes are. So if you're ready, Hads, let's have that bit of plywood. So we've got a screw right in the centre there. We've got our 300 TDI template there. That's going to go on the screw before it touches the bell housing. We're going to put a spirit level across the top, level it in, and we're going to wind that screw out, which will bring the board in to get our template. We've now just levelled the tractor up, just across the hydraulic tops there. There's a flat plate. Just jacked up there. That's going to allow us for when we fit the plywood to the bell housing, we'll level the plywood up because we've measured that it's all trued up. Then we can use that red oxide to get a template and it'll be level. Ready to go. Ready?
Yeah, well.
Which way are you going with that hammer? Pull it away. There we go. We've got it. Right, we've got a few bolts in. There's one we need to find over this way. I'll have a look to see if there's one down here. But around this area is where the starter's going to go as well on the 300 TDI. So we'll have a little look. This one here has actually had the... Oh, can't even see where. This one here's got a broken bolt in, so I'm going to have to drill that out and get that one sorted. But you can see after that up around here, there's nothing until we get to the top one. So we are doing quite well. So that's all the bolts in what we can get in. The two at the top, if you want to point them out, Hads. That one and that one, they're right through. They're not captive in the back end, so they're just normal bolts. And the one what's missing here is a broken bolt in the bell housing, which we'll try and get out. But yeah, all the bolts are in, lined up. We'll draw around that. We've already got the template, the 300 TDI. So what we need to do is stick to the biggest outlines, and that's what we'll cut out. I actually do think the bit of plywood will be strong enough to actually take the engine in the Fergie without doing it in steel. But we ain't going to do that. To go with the conversion, we've now got to make a new pilot bearing to put the Fergie shaft to go into the flywheel of the Land Rover engine. So I've ordered a bit of bronze sort of brass bushing. This is the type what absorbs oil. So once we've done this, it'll get soaked in oil, and that's the right stuff to make this bush. So what I've done, I've put a dial gauge on there and just getting the actual working piece centered in the lathe so it's not wobbling up and down. I then plan to face this up, and I'll take this down to the right thickness we want. Then we'll either drill or take some out the centre to get it the right size for the Fergie shaft as well. So what I'm aiming for is 17mm is the Fergie shaft. Sounds a strange one, with being an old tractor, saying in millimetres, but when you look on the websites for buying a new pilot bearing, that's actually the internal diameter they give you for the centre of the shaft to go in, and the external size for the Land Rover is 27mm. So 17 in the middle, 27 on the outside. Let's crack on. It's quite old, is this old lathe. I think it's about 1937 when I've done some research on it. So you have to go around, manually oil up all the bearings, which takes a little while. And they have like a little wick, like a candle in them, and that just retains the oil and just allows it to lubricate while the lathe's running. So just every time we use it, we give it a little drink of oil. Now, like most of my tools, this lathe is always trying to kill me. So, wedding ring off, safe place. No gloves to catch anything, no long sleeves. I have got a perspex guard here which will stop the belts or anything from hitting me, but I am going to put some safety glasses on before we get started. Now the speed for me seems a little bit high, so I need to change that on the belt settings. So what I've actually done is, if we can just move this camera so you can see a little bit. We've got triple pulleys up on the top, we were on the middle. We've now gone to a smaller one, and as we come down, we've gone to a bigger one here. So it's like having a small starter motor spinning really fast up the top, turning a flywheel on an engine which goes slower. So hopefully that should give us a better speed, and we'll check that now. There we go. So that's faced off now. Now we can concentrate on getting this to the right thickness, which was 27mm. I'm going to have a look, see what drill bits I've got, see if I've got one at 17. I don't think I have, I think I've got 16, but we'll have a look and see. Still a bit to go yet. go back to what it was originally taken on. That's nice. That's a beautiful fit, that. I don't want to go anymore. Let's have a look. There we go. She's looking well. We just need to get the centre now done to the 17mm. So that's the length what we've drilled out now, and you can see we're actually probably 5mm oversized what we need to be. I'm going to set this caliper to the right depth now. There's a little bit of a lip inside there. Let's see if you can see that. There you go. We're just going to have that flat edge on there. Take the caliper in to suit that, and that's going to give us the length we need. So you can see there now, that's our depth of the thrust, sorry, not the thrust washer, the pilot bearing. That's the depth of the pilot bearing we need. I've now transferred the depth of what the pilot bearing needs to be. I've set that with the parting off tool and the lathe, and I'm just going to cut that off and we'll see how she looks. Right, after a bit of sanding with the pen and a bit of paper, that now is just a nice fit on there. There's a bit of resistance there, and she's on. She's free turning, with just a slight bit of resistance, which will help it bed in once we get a bit of oil in there as well. It'll be good. Now we want to see if we can tap this into here. Alright, we're ready to tap her into position. There we go. She's oiled up and ready to rock. Right, let's talk about clutch plates and flywheels and pressure plates and adapters. So with the 200 TDI Land Rover engine, this is what mates it up to the gearbox. So we've removed that, and we're actually the bit of plywood making our new template to get an adapter plate cut out to suit the tractor, which needs to be 12mm, what we calculated. We have got the flywheel off the Fergie, the flywheel off the Land Rover, which are very different. We've got the pressure plate off the Land Rover, because that marries up to the Land Rover one. So that's what we need to run with. So we don't need that adapter, and we don't need that flywheel. So what do we do for a clutch? Well, the Land Rover clutch has a different spline centre for the Fergie, so that's no good. The one off the Ferguson TEF, the diesel, that has a 10-inch plate with a 10 spline centre, which nearly fits, but it's just catching on these outer edges, so it's slightly too big. So that's no good. What we do have is a Fergie 10 spline centre, 9cm width, which fits in the TEA and the TED. So when we look at the Land Rover one versus the Fergie petrol TVO ones, it's very, very similar. There's about 1/4 of an inch difference. That's slightly bigger. But what that means is, it'll go in our pressure plate, It's not oversized. It fits the splines in the Fergie and it'll bolt up into the Land Rover flywheel. So that's what we're running with. I don't know if that's right. I'm just making it up as I go along, seeing what works. There doesn't seem to be a lot of information out there on these conversions. So as we go, we're going to learn. So we've got our clutch plate there. What I have found is with the pressure plate off the Land Rover, the forks are slightly too big. I don't know if you can see there, but we need to trim off right round inside there, just so it houses in the thrust bearing correctly. So I mentioned that I need to take a little bit out of the pressure plate on the forks. The reason why is this little lip just on the end of my finger there. I don't know if it'll help if I push the thrust bearing out. Yeah, you can see there in the centre, there's that raised lip. Without taking anything off the forks, it would be that lip which would be touching the pressure plate on the forks, and it doesn't turn. That part of the bearing turns, the inner does not. So I'll just try and do this one-handed. And you can see now, we've actually got the forks on the right side of that centerpiece, what doesn't turn. So now the actual bearing will push on the forks. And you can see there, I've just gone round. What I actually did, I found a thin disc in a 4.5 inch angle grinder. It slots in there so it's not catching the forks. It allows you to take the edge off. Then what I've done is gone round with a rotary file in a drill as well, just to finish it off. So it's worked out all right. Now, because I'm tighter than an otter's pocket, I didn't get the adapter plate laser cut out, and I didn't actually go and buy a new bit of steel. I managed to find a bit of steel I had on an old snowplow, and it's perfect for the job. So we're going to cut it out with a grinder. So I'm not going to bore you with the sound of the grinder going, so let's have some happy rock music to fill in the noise. That's the plate all cut out now. We're going to overlay the template, then we can mark up for the holes and maybe use a hole saw for where the starter motor goes. Where we've got this hole here, it's going to be obviously a lot bigger, so we'll crack on with that. The plan is now we've clamped the board down. We're going to go around with a drill just in the holes, just to give us a centre right round them all. Then we'll drill them all through properly. Now what I've found with the plate is where the actual block of the Land Rover is, I've had to weld that stud in. All the others are just holes. And on the Fergie side of it, I've had to put a stud in there because you can't get a bolt in because of the Land Rover side of it. We've taken a little bit out the bell housing as well, and there's a couple of bolts I need to order. One for here and one for here, which need to be countersunk as well, so I'm going to order some of them. While we were going through the effort of putting the engine in, what I didn't want to do was have this seal leaking, so we got a new one and we've added that in. Makes sense why she's split. We've just got the flywheel on. We're just in the process of nipping these bolts down. We've got the starter in as well. You can see we had a bit of yellow paint on, and we're using that just to see where it was touching when it was going into the Fergie side. What I've done to align the clutch, I've just made a bit of a clutch plate aligning tool. It's just a bit of round bar, gaffer tape on to suit the actual pressure plate. That goes into the spigot bearing end. And that's got the plate in. That's now holding it all in the centre. We've actually already aligned it and nipped it up with a couple of bolts, but you can see that's holding it bang in the centre for alignment. We're just going to do all the bolts right round the pressure plate now and doing opposites as we work around. I've just used the spirit level here as a straight edge to get this depth from here to the fork. I'll just zoom in so you can get a bit of a better picture. So try to go from the edge of the level to the end of these forks, and it's actually 10mm in. Then I'm deducting that 10mm from this level face to the actual plate, so that's giving me the distance from the plate to the forks. And if we look inside the tractor, so we've got this distance on the vernier now. We're going from the face where the plate goes, and the depth from the vernier to the pressure plate, to the release bearing, sorry. And it's hard to see with the camera angle, but there's, forget that squared up, probably about 5 to 7mm, something like that, away from the thrust bearing. So that means the thrust bearing is going to clear the forks and we won't have any issues.
Go for it, man.
So we've got a set up, we've just got a liner in now. Hopefully that clutch alignment tool is going to do its job. We've got a spanner on the front of the engine so we can turn it to help align the splines. And also the tractor is jacked up so we can turn the wheel as well. So let's see if we can get her in. Right, we've just managed to get the splines just to start and go in the pressure plate. And we've took the top of the steering box off, so you can just see in there the actual clutch assembly just here. So we've got it in, and we've just got this to go now, so we just need to get it located in the spigot bearing. That's the engine fully bolted in, with the adapter plate in there. We've just got one bolt to do down underneath to get, but I can get that once I get down that way. But we've just mocked up the front axle and set a good bit of clearance, and a good friend of mine came up with a good idea. Put a socket on the nut. I've put some gaffer tape around the shaft on here so it's centralised, so that pin is now centralised up with the nut on the crank. It's just sat on an axle stand there. So that's now in position, and what I want to do is go from this edge and tie it in back to the adapter plate. So we've got sort of side rails like we have on the Major to tie it in and give it a bit of strength. So what we've got throughout on here, there's a bolt up point at the back of here, and there's another one you can just see there. So we'll tie into there, weld onto the adapter plate, weld onto the edge of here, and maybe we'll have to make a filling piece to bring it to size. I don't know. We'll do something to make it look presentable and make sure it's got plenty of strength. Then I'm hoping once I get the bonnet mount welded back up properly, We'll put the bonnet on. It's going to be too long, but then I'm going to see if it's possible if we can relocate these holes a little bit further back, because we're only talking maybe an inch longer than it should be. So see if we can jiggle the bonnet back a little bit, so then we don't have to chop the bonnet. Caster arm wise, what I'm thinking is we can split it on this bit of round bar and hopefully drill this out or lengthen it, or try and make it strong in there. And the steering rod, we can just chop it, brace it with a piece in and a bit of pipe over the top and blend it, and it'll all look as one. But while we're here as well, you can see in there we've got the clutch pressure plate there, and I'm just going to reach around and work the clutch, and you can see that there, and it's hard to tell, but there's probably about 5mm free play in a clutch plate at the moment, so we're looking good. We've got a new lift pump fitted because the old one wasn't priming. That's one off a 200 TDI. I actually had that in stock, so it fits. We've also had a blanking plate made for the vac pump just here, so that just tidies it up. We don't need the vac pump, so there's no point in it being on there. We've added a new alternator, new auxiliary belt. We've also, what I didn't film, I've put a new cam belt on it as well, which is just this plate off around here. You can see it's got a new bit of sealant on there. It's quite furred up in there as well, so that's all been cleaned out. So tidied up. Now, if you've stuck with us this far and you haven't subscribed, please do. I get the stats on who's a subscriber, and 85% of the people who watch my videos don't actually subscribe. It doesn't actually cost you a penny. You don't get harassed for notifications or anything like that, unless you want to, that is. But no, it does help me out, and it costs you nothing. So please go ahead and do that. If you're watching off a TV, you need to do it on a mobile phone to do it that way as well. You don't get the comments on your TV. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. See you in the next one.